Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. We love getting into the nitty-gritty of things here, and today we're taking a deep dive into the world of brand change implementation.
Yeah, that's right. Everyone loves a shiny new logo, but how do we actually make it happen? How do you actually implement change across an organization?
Right, it's kind of like we can all dream up these beautiful designs and these really kitschy taglines, but then,
What happens?
yeah, what happens when you have to roll it out across, a company of hundreds or even thousands of people?
Exactly. And that's where Andy Johnson's book, Brand Shift Mastering Implementation, comes in. He's a veteran of the branding world, so he's seen it all from those triumphant rebrands to the ones that, well, kind of face plant.
So he's seen the good, the bad, and the ugly.
He has. And in fact, he actually kicks off the book with this cautionary tale about a company called Globex, whose rebrand completely crashed and burned because they just didn't have a solid plan in place.
Okay, so Globex, what not to do, that's what we want to avoid becoming.
Yeah. Got some lessons to be learned there. But I think, before we even get to the implementation itself, I'm curious, what are some of those common triggers that push companies to make these sometimes drastic brand changes in the first place?
Yeah. What makes a company say, okay, you know what, scrap everything. We need a whole new look, a whole new feel.
Well, sometimes it's, something pretty major, like a merger or an acquisition where you have to bring two distinct brands together. That can be a real
Oh,
challenge.
yeah. You can't just like slap two logos together and call it a day, right? What about when it's not something that dramatic like a merger? What are some other reasons a company might decide to rebrand?
Well, sometimes a brand's target audience evolves and they might be trying to appeal to a whole new generation of customers, and that old image just doesn't resonate anymore.
So it's kind of like trying to sell bell bottoms in a skinny jeans world.
Exactly. You've got to adapt to stay relevant.
So sometimes it's the audience that's changing, and sometimes it's the brand itself that's feeling a little outdated.
Yeah, think of those companies that were once cutting edge, but now they just look, well, a bit stuck in a time warp.
Ouch. Yeah, nobody wants to be that company that's stuck in the past.
Right. And then there are those times when a company's values or their mission have shifted and they need their brand to reflect that change.
Okay, so we've got mergers, we've got shifting audiences, we've got companies realizing, hey, we're not the same company we were 5 or 10 years ago.
Exactly.
So once a company realizes, okay, it's time for a change, where do they even begin with this whole implementation process? It just seems so incredibly daunting.
Yeah, it can be, but the key is having a structured approach. And I think the first and most crucial step is building the right team. And that's about more than just designers.
Okay, so who else needs to be at the table besides the creative folks?
You need executive sponsors to champion the project. You need implementation leads to steer the ship work groups to handle those specific tasks, and a PMO, a program management office to keep everything on track.
Wow. Okay, so we're not just talking about a couple designers huddled around a computer brainstorming logos.
Not at all. This is a major undertaking, and it requires a dedicated team with a diverse set of skills.
So is there a way to visualize how all these different roles and responsibilities fit together? I'm already feeling a bit overwhelmed just thinking about it.
Absolutely. Johnson actually includes a suggested organizational chart in the book, and it really highlights how complex this can get. He lays out who reports to whom and what each team is responsible for.
So it's like having a blueprint for your rebranding dream team.
Exactly. And I think having that clarity up front can really help prevent those communication breakdowns and those turf wars that can derail a project.
Okay, so let's say we've got our dream team assembled. What's next? Do we jump right into brainstorming new logos and taglines?
Well, not quite yet.
Yeah.
Before you even think about those new fonts or color palettes, you need to conduct a thorough brand audit.
Okay, a brand audit. What exactly does that entail?
It's like an x-ray of your brand, uncovering all those touch points that'll be affected by the change. They're talking websites, social media profiles, signage, marketing materials, even those little stickers they put on company laptops.
Wow, so literally everything.
Everything. Imagine having to rebrand everything from tiny key cards to giant billboards. The audit helps you wrap your head around the sheer scope of the project.
That's got to be a pretty meticulous process.
It is, but it's so crucial. It ensures that nothing falls through the cracks and that you have a comprehensive understanding of what needs to change.
Okay, so once you have this massive inventory of all your brand touch points, how do you even begin to tackle a project of that magnitude? You can't change everything at once, right?
You're absolutely right. Prioritization is key. And Johnson suggests ranking touch points by two factors: their impact and how easy they are to implement.
So you're saying some things are going to be quick wins and others are going to be more long-term projects.
Exactly. And To help visualize this process, he recommends using a decision matrix.
Okay, a decision matrix, break that down for me.
Basically, it's a graph where you plot out each touch point based on its impact and its ease of implementation. So you can quickly see those high-impact, easy-to-change elements that you should tackle first.
So it's kind of like a strategic game of brand dominoes.
Yeah.
Knock down the first one and the rest start to fall into place.
Exactly. And along with prioritization, you also need to think about realistic timelines.
Timelines, that's something we all struggle with, right?
Definitely. And Johnson emphasizes the difference between those high-level milestones and the detailed, granular timelines needed for smooth execution.
So big picture versus those day-to-day tasks.
Exactly. And I think flexibility is key here because things will inevitably pop up along the way.
Oh, for sure. Unexpected delays, new priorities emerge, those inevitable last-minute fire drills. You've got to be able to roll with the punches.
Absolutely. The book also highlights something I found really interesting, the need for separate timelines for different audiences.
Like employees versus customer.
Exactly. You wouldn't want your own team being blindsided by a major brand change that they hear about on the news.
Right, that makes sense. So you've got to think about who needs to know what and when. Okay, so we've got our dream team. We've got our detailed audit. We've got our timelines mapped out. But now let's talk about the elephant in the room. The budget. I'm guessing budgeting for a rebrand involves a lot more than just design fees.
You are so right. The book actually dives into the difference between CapEx and OpEx capital expenditures, like purchasing new equipment versus those ongoing operational costs.
So to use a real-world example, if we're rebranding, the CapEx might be buying those new company cars with the updated logo, but the OpEx is training our staff to use the new brand voice guidelines correctly.
You got it. And it's those ongoing costs that can really catch people off guard.
That's a great point. You've got to factor in everything from updating those marketing materials to training your customer service team.
Absolutely. You've got to think long term.
Okay, so we've got our dream team, our detailed audit, our timelines, and our budget all squared away. How do we get everyone on board with this massive undertaking? I'm guessing getting buy-in from key stakeholders is crucial.
Absolutely. And Johnson suggests presenting your implementation plan in a way that gets those executives excited.
So it's not just about throwing a bunch of spreadsheets and timelines at them. You've got to paint a picture of the future. Show them the potential benefits of this rebrand.
Exactly. And beyond those executives, don't forget about engaging all those other stakeholders. Keeping everyone from employees to vendors informed and on the same page is so important.
So communication is key.
It's absolutely essential. And the book mentions something I found fascinating, using NDAs early on in the process.
Wait, NDAs? Like those non-disclosure agreements?
Yep. It might seem extreme for a rebranding project, but it's not just about legalities. It's about signaling to people how important their involvement is.
So you're saying it's about creating that sense of exclusivity and importance.
Exactly. It's like saying you're in the inner circle. This is big.
Okay, I can see how that would be motivating.
Yeah.
So with the buy-in secured and the communication flowing, how do we keep this whole rebranding train on the tracks once things are in motion?
Well, that's where our PMO, our program management office, comes in, right?
Right, the PMO, or mission control for the rebrand.
Exactly. Once things are rolling, the PMO takes the reins. They're responsible for keeping everything on schedule, addressing any issues that arise, and making sure the whole operation runs smoothly.
So we're talking about dashboards to track progress, communication platforms to keep everyone connected, and maybe even a good old-fashioned risk register to anticipate those potential hiccups along the way.
You got it. That risk register is actually a really valuable tool. It's not just about saying, hey, this could go wrong, but also here's how bad it could be and here's how likely it is to happen.
And then crucially, you develop contingency plans for each identified risk.
Exactly. It's like having a backup plan for your backup plan.
I love that level of preparedness.
It's essential because, let's face it, even with the best laid plans, things don't always go according to plan.
Oh, for sure.
But by being proactive, communicating clearly, and adapting as needed, you can minimize those disruptions and keep that rebrand on track.
That's a great point. It's all about navigating those inevitable bumps in the road with grace and a solid strategy.
Exactly. And speaking of navigating, after all this planning and execution, we finally reached the moment of truth launch day.
That's it. The culmination of all that hard work, the moment you finally unveil the new brand to the world.
It's both exhilarating and nerve-wracking.
It's got to be. So what are some strategies for a high-impact launch? both for external audiences like customers and media, and internally for the team that's been sweating over this for months.
Well, for external audiences, you want to create a coordinated and consistent experience across all channels.
So are we talking press releases, social media blitzes, maybe even some launch events?
Exactly. It's about generating buzz, getting people talking, and creating a sense of anticipation.
And those messages shouldn't just be about, hey, we have a new logo. They need to articulate the why behind the rebrand, right?
Absolutely. You want to tell a compelling story that resonates with your audience and gets them excited about this change.
Okay, so it's all about crafting that narrative and then amplifying it across those different channels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And internally, the launch is a great opportunity to celebrate all that hard work the team has put in. Think team celebrations, maybe some fun swag featuring the new branding and opportunities for employees to share their excitement.
So it's about making sure the people who made this rebrand happen feel valued and recognized.
Absolutely. And don't forget about those internal resources like clear and accessible guidelines to help employees understand and embrace the new brand.
Right, because they're the ones who will ultimately bring this rebrand to life, interacting with customers and representing the company every day.
Exactly. They're your brand ambassadors, and their buy-in is crucial for long-term success.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive into the world of brand change implementation. I'm already feeling much more informed.
Me too. It's amazing how much strategic thinking and meticulous execution goes into a successful rebranding effort.
It's definitely not just about slapping on a new coat of paint.
It's about transforming a company from the inside out.
Exactly. And to illustrate just how impactful and sometimes risky these transformations can be, we're going to take a look at some real-world examples in the next part.
Yes, stay tuned for part 2, where we'll dissect some captivating wins and fails in the world of rebranding.
We'll see what happens when those best-laid plans meet the real world.
It's going to be good.
Can't wait.
Welcome back to our deep dive into brand change implementation.
I feel like we've already covered so much ground.
We have, from those initial triggers for a rebrand to crafting that all-important implementation plan.
And those crucial launch strategies, right? And the fact that it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. But now I think it's time to really roll up our sleeves and get into the nuts and bolts of how to actually execute that rebrand.
Yes, let's get tactical. Where do we even begin once we have that solid foundation in place?
Okay, so before you can actually start updating all those touch points, you need to make sure all your ducks are in a row.
All right, so we're talking about the brand strategy is finalized, that new visual identity is locked in, and those interim guidelines and training programs for all your agencies and vendors are ready to go.
Absolutely. Everyone needs to be speaking the same brand language.
Right, from the designers creating those visuals to the sales team explaining the rebrand to clients.
Precisely. And you also need to make sure those core brand elements are easily accessible to everyone involved.
Okay, so we're talking about the logo, suite, fonts, color palettes, graphic devices, visual libraries. What else?
Don't forget about those essential brand templates and assets.
Oh, right. Things like stationary collateral templates, a design system for all those digital properties. It's a lot to keep track of.
It definitely is. And getting all of that ready to go is a huge undertaking, but it's all essential for a smooth and successful rollout.
Right. It's all about setting everyone up for success. So once those resources are in place, then what?
Then the focus shifts to actually producing all that new collateral for the launch and updating all those priority touch points we identified earlier.
Okay, so picture this. A brand new website is being built, signage and environmental graphics are going up, sales toolkits are being created, company vehicles are getting a makeover.
Exactly. And we can't forget about refreshing those trade show components, designing those new uniforms. The list goes on and on.
It's like a massive wave of the new brand washing over every aspect of the company.
I like that analogy, and it's crucial to allocate the right amount of time, resources, and budget to each of those launch critical touch points.
Because a smooth and successful launch really sets the tone for everything that follows.
Absolutely. Now, even with the most meticulous planning, we know things can change during a rebrand.
Oh, for sure. Market conditions shift, new priorities emerge. Those unexpected challenges just pop up. How do you stay on track amidst all that flux?
That's where those regular progress updates come in.
Okay, so we're talking about those check-in meetings with the team leads and stakeholders where you're reviewing the status of each task.
Exactly, making sure everyone's on the same page, addressing any roadblocks that have popped up.
And being willing to adapt the implementation plan as needed.
Exactly, because sometimes you need to course correct in order to get to that best possible outcome.
Right, so it's not about being rigid, it's about being flexible and responsive.
Exactly. And speaking of staying connected, Effective coordination is crucial, not just within the internal team, but also with all those external agencies and vendors you're working with.
Oh, I can only imagine. You've got designers, printers, web developers, signage companies, all these different players working together.
It's a symphony of moving parts, and clear communication is absolutely paramount.
So laying out those expectations up front, establishing deadlines, having those regular check-ins to make sure everyone's on track.
Exactly. All those basic communication principles become even more important during a rebranding project because the stakes are so high.
Right. And it really helps to have that central hub for sharing information and updates so everyone has access to the same materials.
Exactly. It minimizes confusion, keeps everyone moving in the same direction.
Okay, so our plan is in motion. Everyone's communicating effectively, working hard to hit those milestones. But what about those unexpected challenges and risks that inevitably crop up during a project of this scale?
That's where proactive risk management comes in.
So anticipating those potential issues before they become major problems.
Exactly. And the book talks about creating a risk register. I think you'll find this interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Basically, it's a list of potential risks along with their likelihood and their potential impact on the project.
So you're not just saying, hey, this could go wrong, but also here's how bad it could be and here's how likely it is to actually happen.
Precisely. And for each risk, you develop a contingency plan.
So if this happens, we'll do that, like having a backup plan for your backup plan.
Exactly. It's all about anticipating those bumps in the road and having a strategy to navigate them smoothly.
So we should expect there will be some bumps, but it's about how we handle them.
Absolutely.
And those bumps, even though we don't want them, they can be valuable learning experiences.
I agree. Every challenge is an opportunity to refine your processes and make the next rebrand even smoother.
So it's all about having that continuous improvement mindset, always looking for ways to do things better.
Exactly. Now, with all this in motion, the rebrand is in full swing. Those touch points are being updated, the risks are being managed, and it's all building toward that big launch day.
The culmination of all that hard work when you finally unveil the new brand to the world.
And a chance to generate that excitement, build some buzz, make a lasting first impression.
Okay, but before we dive into all the specifics of launching a rebrand, I think it would be helpful to step back and look at some real-world examples.
I agree. Let's see how these concepts actually play out in the wild.
What are some companies that absolutely nailed their rebranding efforts?
Well, Domino's Pizza is a classic example of a brand that not only listened to customer feedback, but actually embraced it.
They basically admitted their pizza wasn't great.
They did, but they went further than just tweaking the recipe.
They actually featured those brutal customer reviews in their ads.
Exactly. Talk about vulnerability.
It wasn't just evolution, it was a complete 180.
And it paid off. Their transparent communication and commitment to improvement really resonated with customers.
It's a great example of how authenticity and a willingness to listen can really turn things around.
Now, on the flip side, we have Kodak, a company that failed to adapt to market changes and ultimately paid the price.
They completely missed the boat on digital photography despite having invented the first digital camera.
It's a classic case of a company resting on its laurels, failing to innovate.
And it's a cautionary tale for any company, no matter how big or established.
Right.
Okay, so we've seen a spectacular win and a pretty epic fail. What about a rebrand that, while it didn't go off without a hitch, ultimately provided some valuable lessons?
British Airways' attempt to introduce a more global, diverse image with those tail fin designs is a good example.
Those colorful tail fins.
Yeah.
It always felt like they were trying a little too hard to be something they weren't.
Exactly, and it backfired because it didn't really resonate with their core audience. It's a reminder that staying true to your brand's heritage and identity is essential.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And finally, let's not forget about Radio Shack's attempt to rebrand as The Shack.
Oh yeah, the Shack, it felt so forced, like they were trying to manufacture this hip, trendy image that just didn't fit.
And the inconsistent rollout just made things worse.
It highlights the importance of having a solid plan and crystal clear communication.
Absolutely.
Right.
So what can we learn from these real-world examples?
Well, it seems like a deep understanding of your target audience and staying true to your brand's core values are absolutely crucial.
You need to know who you are, who you're talking to, and what you stand for.
But you also need to be adaptable and willing to evolve.
Precisely. Finding that balance is key.
And let's not forget about that clear communication both internally and externally.
Absolutely. Everyone needs to be on board and understand the vision.
And those practical aspects are so important too.
The implementation plan, the resources, the dedicated team, it all has to work together.
It's like a well-oiled machine with everyone moving in the same direction. And maybe the biggest takeaway is that a rebrand is not a one-time event, it's an ongoing journey.
It requires constant attention and adaptation.
So even after that big launch day, the work continues.
It does.
We've covered so much ground in this deep dive, but we're not done yet.
There's still more to explore.
We still need to talk about those high-impact launch strategies, both for external audiences and internal stakeholders.
And how to keep that brand momentum going long after that initial launch excitement fades.
Stay tuned for part 3 of our deep dive into brand change implementation,
where we'll delve into the strategies and tactics that can help make your brand transformation a resounding success.
All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We're in the home stretch now, talking about brand change implementation.
We've made it to launch day.
It's the grand finale. All those months of strategizing and meticulous planning, they all lead up to this moment.
It's kind of like a combination of excitement and nerves,
Right,
right?
oh, absolutely. It's like you're putting your heart and soul out there for the world to see.
The big moment.
Yeah, so let's talk strategy. What are some key elements of a high-impact launch, both for those external audiences like customers and media, and then also internally for the team that's been working so hard on this project?
Well, for external audiences, I think it's really about creating that coordinated and consistent experience across all channels.
Okay, so are we talking like press releases are going out, social media is buzzing with announcements, maybe even some launch events to really make a statement?
Exactly. You want to create a symphony of messaging that really resonates with your target audience.
And those messages shouldn't just be like, hey, we have a new logo, right?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
You need to articulate the why behind the rebrand. What's the story you're telling? What are the benefits? Why should people care?
So it's all about painting that compelling picture, making that emotional connection.
Precisely. Now, internally, the launch is a great opportunity to celebrate all the hard work the team has put in.
Right. It's about recognizing all those countless hours and, those late nights, the creative brainstorming sessions.
Exactly. Acknowledge their efforts and give them a sense of ownership in this new brand.
So team celebrations, fun swag, featuring the new logo opportunities for employees to really share their excitement.
Absolutely. And remember, your employees are your brand ambassadors.
Right. They're the ones interacting with customers every day, representing the company.
Exactly. So equip them with the knowledge and the resources they need to really champion that new brand.
So things like, clear guidelines, training sessions, maybe even an internal platform to share ideas and feedback.
It's about creating that culture of brand stewardship from the inside out.
Now, speaking of real-world examples, remember that seamless transition when Google became Alphabet?
Oh, yeah. That was a masterclass in launch execution.
They had a clear message, a strategic rollout, and they really leveraged their massive online presence to engage the public.
And what about MasterCard's rebrand in 2016?
Another great example, they modernized their image, but they kept those instantly recognizable elements.
And their global marketing campaign was brilliant. It generated so much buzz.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that sometimes it's about evolution, not revolution.
You don't always have to reinvent the wheel, but you do need to keep it rolling.
So the confetti is settled, the launch party's over, but now the real work begins, right?
That's right. Building brand guardianship and making sure that new brand thrives in the long run.
So it's about going beyond that initial burst of energy and really embedding the new brand into the DNA of the company.
And it all starts with monitoring brand performance and ensuring consistency.
Okay, so those key performance indicators, those KPIs that we established way back when.
Exactly. Are we seeing those results?
Yeah.
Is the new brand resonating?
But how do we actually measure that? Are we talking spreadsheets and pie charts?
Well, it can be as simple as Google Analytics or as sophisticated as those social media listening platforms.
So we're not just looking at numbers, we're analyzing conversations, gauging sentiment.
Precisely. You want that holistic view of how the brand's performing out there in the real world.
And those insights are so crucial for, making decisions moving forward.
Absolutely. And you need to share those findings with the executive team, demonstrate the impact of the rebrand.
Show them that it's actually working.
Exactly. And then there's the human element. Employee engagement is so important for building long-term brand guardianship.
Right. You want your team to feel invested in the brand's success, to feel like they're a part of something bigger.
Exactly. So keep those training sessions going, create opportunities for feedback, maybe even launch an internal platform dedicated to brand discussions.
It's about empowering your employees to be those brand champions.
And let's not forget about continuous improvement. Even the most successful brands need to adapt and evolve over time.
So what's working? What needs tweaking? Are there any emerging trends that we need to address?
Exactly. And I think having a brand steering committee can be really helpful here.
So, a team of representatives from different departments who are meeting regularly to kind of keep a pulse on things.
Exactly. They're your brand guardians,
Uh-huh.
your strategic think tank.
And they need to be agile, adaptable, ready to pivot when necessary.
Because the market's constantly changing, and your brand needs to stay ahead of the curve.
It's about being proactive, not reactive.
Embracing change, not fearing it.
This has been an incredible deep dive. I feel like we've really gone deep into this world of brand change implementation.
I agree, it's been a fascinating journey.
So as we wrap up, what are some key takeaways for our listeners? What should they be thinking about as they maybe embark on their own brand transformations?
Well, first and foremost, remember that a successful brand change is not a destination. It's an ongoing journey.
It's about building a brand that can adapt, evolve, and thrive in that ever-changing marketplace.
And having that strong foundation is crucial. A clear brand strategy, a compelling story, a robust governance framework.
Those are the pillars that will support your brand through those inevitable ups and downs.
And don't underestimate the power of the human element. Engage your stakeholders, empower your team, and foster that culture of brand guardianship.
Because brands are ultimately about human connection.
Well said. And finally, learn from those real-world examples, both the successes and the missteps.
There's a wealth of knowledge out there that can help you navigate your own brand journey.
So as you embark on your own brand transformation, you're not alone.
There are resources experts, a whole community of brand enthusiasts ready to support you.
And we hope this deep dive has given you the insights and the inspiration to make your brand a shining success.
And if you're looking for a comprehensive guide, Andy Johnson's book, Brand Shift, Mastering Implementation, is an invaluable resource.
Absolutely. It's packed with practical advice and real-world examples that can really help you turn that brand vision into a reality.
So go forth and transform your brands.
Until next time, keep diving deep.